Welcome to the Patriots Advocating Truth and Honor podcast, aka the P.A.T.H. Once again, I'm your U.S. Army Combat Veteran host, James Beck. Here is a bond servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ to remind the world that on the narrow road, the way, the truth, and the life doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so let's see how he's equipped us today by talking to my guest, Haley Dunkin. Haley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So for those of you that don't know Haley, she's a U.S. Army combat veteran herself. She's also a wife and a mother, and she works with a bunch of various nonprofits and does tremendous things for all of them. But the main focus of having her on today is her professional hobby, where she operates as an advocate for anybody in the U.S. military and veteran community that she can help. And that's actually how we met. And so, Hales, what I wanted to really talk about with you today is the way you show up in the world. And the way you do show up really reminds me of the parable of the Good Samaritan. Are you familiar with that parable?
I wasn't until you and I got to, conversate about it and you shared with me. So I'd love
It's interesting,
hear
isn't
more.
it? Right?
Yeah.
Because we all know the term Good Samaritan, but we don't necessarily know the story. So for those people out there that don't know it, Jesus was having a conversation with a lawyer, and this lawyer came up to him and said, how do I get into heaven? How do I have eternal life? And Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so the lawyer naturally asks, he says, well, who's my neighbor? And so Jesus says to the lawyer, he says, well, okay, if you want to know who your neighbor is, then I'm going to tell you a story. He says, there was a Hebrew man that was beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. And there were three people that came across this Hebrew man. There was a Hebrew priest, and then another Hebrew from the Levite tribe who are is also religious leaders. They're both religious leaders in the Hebrew community. And they walk right past this guy, right? And the reason that they walk past him is because under their beliefs, they thought that he was dead. And if he was dead, touching him would be a sin. So they keep going, right? Even though they were the ones that were probably most responsible, or should have been the ones that stopped. And so the one that does actually stop and help this guy is a Samaritan. And the Samaritans were sworn enemies of the Hebrews at that time. So the fact that a Samaritan stopped and helped a Hebrew who looked like he might be dead was actually a big deal. And so when Jesus tells this story, then goes back to the lawyer, he says, okay, so which one of these three was the Hebrew man's neighbor? And the lawyer says, well, the Samaritan, the one that showed mercy. And so Jesus says to the lawyer, great, go forth and do likewise. And Haley, it's that same kind of compassion that I see in you in the way that you show up in the world, and what I really wanted to bring you on today to give some attention to. So that's where I want to start, because I don't think that kind of compassion and that kind of willingness to act that you have just shows up from nowhere, right? We're not really built that way. And that's the same kind of compassion that I see in you, Hales. And I just thought, I really want to give that some attention. And so here we are, right? So let me start there and ask you, because I don't think that kind of compassion and that kind of willingness to act that you have just shows up out of nowhere. So if you had to whittle that down, is there like a single person that really ingrained that in you, or maybe a moment in your life or an experience or anything in your military experience either that really shaped you in this way where you feel now compelled to really show up for others the way that you do? Talk about that a little bit for me.
So I have two like small examples. One is my mom, who was the most giving person I've ever met. We've never had anything, we fought to keep the lights on, we fought to have food. But the minute somebody, would say to her, wow, I really like your hat, she takes it off and hands it over. Wow, I really like your shoes. She takes it and she, even though she doesn't have that back home, she was always just such a given person. And it kind of just became who I was, because it materialistic things really never meant anything, but seeing someone else smile. And that kind of ingrained and changed my view, which is why I joined the military. I wanted to be able to selflessly give and be able to help and do anything that I could to be that person for others that they might not even known they needed. And when I sold my business to take care of my health, I went on this journey looking for what I needed while I was in the business. And that was just unwavering support. I shouldn't have to pay someone to get the support. I shouldn't have to do that. So I started sharing on social media. I wanted to hear people's stories. I wanted to know why you went into business. I wanted to know why you went into the military. And I wanted to share that with other people instead of just your typical on Veterans Day when someone posts up, oh, hey, this is the business. Did you know it was veteran owned? I wanted to, every Monday was Military Monday, and I wanted to talk to that business owner and I wanted to hear their military story. And then at the end, be like, they're the owner of this business. So I wanted people to really see the clear of who they are, an open heart versus just like, oh yeah, we should support this business because it's a veteran owned business.
Right.
So it kind of just ties in, I will always do anything that I can to help anyone without any type of expectation to have something back in return, because in return, the universe gives that back to you. God gives that back to you. And some people, it is hard to do a good thing. So you got to mimic that. And I think the way I am today is why my daughter's such a giving person. I always joke with family members, don't give her toys. She's just going to give them away. Because the minute her friend says, wow, I really like that doll, it's gone. And I always say to her, now that she's 6 and she's understanding, and I said to her, Rory, why'd you give that toy away? That's your favorite toy. She said, Mama, did you see my friend's smile and how happy it made them? So I'm just like, yes, because I know how she feels. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, right? Because, Scripture tells us that it's better to give than it is to receive. And we all know that phrase. We were all told that when we were kids. But I think most of us, we grow up and we go, okay, yeah, it's better to give than to receive. But I don't like to give. I like to receive. So I don't understand that phrase. But, that's the thing that I think is really cool about you, because you actually are curious. And, I've talked about this before, but the way we met was through a post on social media that you put asking people to share their business links. And you were going to share that on social media. And there's a lot of people on social media that do that. But when they do it, it's kind of always where we look at it and we go, well, you're just looking to get links of people's business, and you're looking to get contacts, and you're looking to be able to sell them your stuff from that. And it's a lead grab. But there was a spirit about the way that you did it that didn't feel that way. And that's why I you're the only person that I've ever shared my business link with on social media. I've never done it with anybody else, because it always feels like they're just trying to sell me something. And I don't know, it wasn't the wording. It's not that you said something particularly different. There was just the spirit of it. And I could feel the sincerity behind it. And that's what I see in you all the time, is that sincerity. Whenever we talk, I'm always trying to get you to plug or promote something, and you're always just asking questions about me. And I just think, this is something that, this is what Christ commanded us to do. This is what Christ exampled for us to do when he sacrificed for us, even though we didn't deserve it. Even though we were actively crucifying and killing him and rejecting him, and he's hanging on the cross, dying, and he says, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. I mean, he remains silent in the face of his condemners and his torturers. And that's the kind of spirit that I want to put forth into the world, right? With this podcast, is that kind of thing from you. And
Yeah.
let me ask you, how do you maintain that in this world, right? Because the world is really pushing hard to make us all selfish, to divide us, to make us all about us, less of him, more of us, right? And so your opinion doesn't matter because my opinion is more important than your opinion, and we get into all this type of stuff, and then we give to people and they're not grateful, and they hit us back with poor attitudes and lack of gratitude. And I know you've got to experience that as well. And so when you experience stuff like that, how do you deal with it? What's your process for going, no, this is who I am, and I'm going to stay this way regardless of what happens in response?
Yeah. So I had, unfortunately, a lot of that when I ran my business. I had, as soon as I came into business, I had a lot of local companies asking for sponsorships, and hey, can you sponsor this event? Or hey, can you give a few free play passes? And I never once hesitated to say no. I gave my last $400 in the middle of COVID when I just bought this business to a company to host one of their events. So it's my last $400 in my account, period. Not my business account, my personal account in the middle of COVID. So I took that chance because I was just like, well, this is, I know it's $1 million company, but I want to be a good person and they're asking for it. They obviously see something in me. But then I realized that when I started getting sick and going to the doctors all the time, and I needed to keep my lights on for my business, I reached out to the same people who I gave, and I was just, it's not in the budget. We already met that quota. And I said, wow, that hit me hard, because I gave you my last $400 and my husband sold plasma to keep my rent going, so I realized that it doesn't matter. And I wasn't upset about it. I started posting on social media and I was doing that. And I wanted to talk to every business owner. Like you said, I didn't want to just share a link. Every person that I got their link, I inboxed and talked to directly. I want to talk to you and hear what you are and who you do, and then share you and your story and your link. I didn't just post on my Facebook one day, here's all the links of all these companies. I talked to every single person who responded to me in that post that day. And that was just the one group that you saw it in. I did that all over and did all the same things. And because at the end of the day, everyone's struggling, whether it's financially, emotionally, spiritually. It doesn't matter because you could smile and make someone's day. You don't know how they're feeling. You don't know, my daughter loves to pick the weeds, right? To her, they're flowers, but you don't know, she doesn't know whose life she's helping by just giving those flowers to a complete stranger or telling a complete stranger, wow, I really like your dress today. You don't know what people are going through. You have no idea
Right.
what battles they're fighting for. And like you said, Jesus looked down and I'm sure he would have been like, what can I help you with, at that moment of his hardest time in his existence. So
Yeah.
I look at that every day. I just feel like you put it out there and you don't expect anything back. And when you are in that time of need, it'll get answered and you'll get the call that you need. So it's contagious to be a good person, to do good things.
Right.
And anybody that says, oh no, what can I give you back? No, just pass it forward. You do something good for somebody else selfishly, and
Yeah.
I think the world would be a better place if we were able to just do that. And my target is the veterans. After I sold my business and I started healing, I noticed we were, I don't want to say broken because we're not broken, but we were the ones who suffered silently. And I
Right.
didn't want any of my brothers and sisters anywhere to ever suffer silently, because I did for so long. And, it's just like, it wasn't worth it. It's easy to be a good person, and it helps you. It fills your cup as well, knowing that you did something good or gave someone your last $5 that you have. We've done that before. My husband and I broke, soldiers in the army and saw someone homeless, and we gave them the last money we had in our account till we got paid next month.
Right.
Because you make it with what you have. You can get by. Everybody, there's someone else doing it, living in a worse condition than you are. So
Right.
every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm grateful for having a roof over my head, because there's been times where I haven't. I'm grateful for water, running clean water to an extent. But people, being deployed, Afghanistan, Iraq, you don't have clean water to really shower and to,
Oh,
you do your business, you call a day and you're gone. So I always look at that, by being a good person. Even the people with millions and billions of dollars, they're not happy. They're if you could just say hello to them, it makes a big difference.
I think one of the key points that you brought up there was the whole thing about, you said you didn't want to call our community of veterans broken. And I would say that that's correct. We're not broken, but we're the ones that take the brunt of the damage. You know what I mean? Because we're out in front. And a lot of us do break individually, but I don't think as a community that it's right to call us broken either. But what you alluded to is something that's a big passion on my heart as well. And it's the fact that the problem that we have in our community as veterans is a lack of direction. And the way that I connect that to is, when we were wearing our green suits, our camouflage, we were important. It doesn't matter what you did in the Army or in the Navy or the Marines or the Air Force or even the Coast Guard. No offense, Coast Guard guys. But when you do those jobs, you're in a job that's important, right? And when you take that uniform off, you're no longer really important anymore. You're, I don't want to say a has-been, but you're off the stage of importance, right? You can't tell somebody, I am a soldier, I am a Marine, I am a sailor. You can say,
Yeah, your purpose and identity is gone. You can't just
right,
look at you and be
it's
like,
gone.
this is who you are, this is what you've done. Nobody knows.
Even if you didn't want to be, like, those kids that we had that, you're in basic training and you're like, why are you here? Well, the judge said I had to be here, or my parents said they were going to kick me out if I didn't sign up. Even those people that don't want to be in the service, when they get out, they can no longer say they're in the military, right? They no longer have that sense of importance. And so what I find so moving about the way that you relate to people is that you ask questions, right? You show an interest, you show a curiosity, and it makes people, it's not the same as saying I'm a soldier or I'm a sailor or whatever branch you're in, but it does stir that fire up a little bit, right? Somebody is interested in me again. I have something that says I'm important to somebody again. And that's the start, right? It's like the spark, right? It's not a full-on forest fire here, but it is the spark where you can ignite that fire again. And that's the very thing that can help people get out of that spot that they're in and reignite that fire and then channel it into something that's going to help the world as a whole, like they used to be doing, right? And I don't think there's any better community besides ours to do that. What we did, what we sacrificed, what we put on the line, and then survived and are now in society, we can offer that in a way that I don't think anybody else can. But what's really important is that we help each other do that. And that's one of the things that I think is so fantastic about you, because like you said, you're not making millions of dollars off of getting veterans to a place where they're good again, but you're making the equivalent of millions of dollars in your heart, and that's developing your character to make you feel good about yourself, right? Where, okay, maybe you don't have millions of dollars. What's that?
It's contagious. The people around me who do have the money to make a difference see what I do, and they're like, how I could help so much more because I have funding to do this,
Right.
And that's you got to surround yourself with the people with the same message. And after selling my business, they're like, you're in the process of opening a second location. You're about to franchise to 5 to 10 new people. And I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Money is just, it's nothing. It means nothing if I'm so in so much pain that it's causing me to feel a certain way where I don't want to get up tomorrow. It doesn't mean anything. My family is going to be missing a crucial part of their, of their whole entire gear system. So I just stepped away from it. And I think in the entrepreneur world, especially for veterans, we're the ones that are going to strap up our boots and help each other no matter what. And however, we're also going to be the ones that won't ask for any help for anything. We'll do all of it all by ourselves, build a whole entire empire by ourselves. And then that takes a toll, on the mental state. So it's just, a veteran will talk to you if you just ask. That's all you have to do. It makes a big difference. And just walking past somebody that is wearing a Vietnam hat and saying hello to them, then sit next to them and just asking how their day is. It makes a huge difference. So I think if we can put that back in the entrepreneurial veteran world, we're stronger together. It's why they train us together. It's why we do what we do together,
It's on the front steps of our front door, right? United we stand and divided we fall. And so I agree with you 100%. And I want to ask you, for those people out there that are in the veteran space where maybe they're separating from service soon, or or they're retired, or whatever the case is, and they're thinking about starting their own business. If you could pull one piece of advice, one thing that you've learned over the time that you've been acting as a military advocate and the time when you were running businesses yourselves and all the work you do with nonprofits, if there was one thing that you could tell anybody getting ready to step off on that path, what would it be?
To heal. Your first year, the moment you step out with that DD 214, heal. Take a whole entire year to find and rebalance your life and yourself, because money comes and goes. Do not jump from one job to the next job, because you're never going to feel complete. And as veterans, we're so depleted in every aspect, and jumping into the civilian world is just going to take even more out of you because you lost your entire system. And that's why I moved to South Carolina. I wanted to team up with a tiny house company and build a tiny house community. And my target veterans are the ones who are stepping out day one. I want them for 6 months, 8 months to a year, whatever they need. But I want their whole entire family. I want no mortgage. I don't want you to have to think about renting or anything like that. Your housing is connected. But I want them to be able to work every single day. I want them to sit in front of an entrepreneur. You want to be an HVAC, business owner? Here you go. Here's a veteran who's running an HVAC company. Talk to each other, because so many people, I hate that word gatekeep, but they do. Oh, I run this big, amazing business and blah, blah, blah. But here's my $500 business course and take it through. And it's all, nothing leads up to just more questions, where it's,
Right.
I want you to be able to sit one-on-one with somebody, find a mentor. Do you want to go to school? What school really is good for veterans? Because there's some out there, you're getting in-pros out, and my husband went to one of them and they shut down and he lost all his credits. So it's just the research. I've done all the research. I've connected. You have a traumatic brain injury. You want to disappear for 3 weeks to go through the program to actually help yourself. You can't do that when you're working a full-time job. You can't do that when you need to help take care of your wife and the children, or vice versa, the husband and children. So I think that first year is the most detrimental. I went to the Red Barn retreat here in South Carolina, and that saved my life. But being able to take a whole entire week off to be detached for that entire week is really hard for people who just jump ship to go right to the next thing to keep the ball rolling. You give the veterans that whole entire year to be able to do that. They come back as a whole person. They know what they need. They can get better acquainted with what they really want. And I've connected with a lot of nonprofits that build tiny homes for veterans, but their target's the homeless, which I love and I agree. And however, there's nothing for veterans who just get out. I think our first year is the most important. And sometimes we need just a full day of silence. We need to not have to think, and maybe go into a deep meditated state so they can filter through all of it and sleep. Maybe you need 5 days of complete just rest, right? In order to get rid of that stress and detox it, you need rest. That's something we don't do in the military.
No.
So I think with that, we would have more successful rates of veterans holding jobs, right? We had better retention rate. All veterans could get jobs. However, our retention rate is terrible in the United States. But most veterans are entrepreneurs. However, most of their businesses fail within the first year. So if we're able to just get them with the people that they need to be in front of, why not? Why not? The first year can make a big difference, and we could save lives. It doesn't have to take someone 10
I agree
years
with you, and it
to
makes
suffer.
it makes me think about, when we go from being a civilian to being in the military, we have to go through a process of being broken down and rebuilt, right? That's what basic and boot camp is. It's, you used to be this, we're going to strip that off of you, and then we're going to rebuild you up as this, right? But then when we get out, we don't do that in reverse. Now, not that I'm saying I want to be stripped, have all my solderness stripped away from me, right? I'm not talking about that, but there is no transitional training. We have the transition centers that help us write resumes and translate all of our military experience into bullets on those resumes. But that's not really the same when it comes to the mindset, right?
Yeah.
And what you're talking
who's taking
about
advantage
here,
of that? Who's the
right?
lower enlisted? Who's taking advantage of that? Me, I was just like trying not to fall asleep, thinking, well, I don't want to be here. I just want to get out, because I was in a toxic
Right.
unit, things like that. However, the officers and lieutenant generals that are retiring out, they have connections. So why are they more successful? Because they have that network.
Right.
Why can't we build something for the lower enlisted or just enlisted class to be able to get that same success? Same thing with marriage. We have the highest marriage loss in the whole, for veterans. It's easy because we get out and your spouse wants a healed version of you. You don't
Right.
give them that time, you can't do it. So
No,
and I
I
just want to
agree.
put it all
I
out there.
agree
I
100%.
want to connect and I want to hear people's stories. And that's how I'm able to build. That's how one day it clicked. And I'm like, why don't we build a space where veterans can come and heal for an entire year? There's free
Yeah.
housing all over the United States. There's money out there to fund these things. Why isn't there a real transition process for veterans? Why do we
So,
have to walk that 22 miles a day when it's really it's probably up in the 70s now every day, right? They
right.
like to fake it. So it's like, how can we do that and really track it, right? I saved
Yeah.
this many lives today, that my program's working because of this. There's so much. I've done so much research and so much digging for a lot of great nonprofits to call a lot of other nonprofits BS.
Yeah, I totally get that too, because, like we were talking about before, and like you mentioned, courses crap out and schools go away and all these different things that were taught or sold, they do or they don't work, and it's kind of a crapshoot, right? And what I know you're building and developing here is a lot more personalized than that. And while you're still in kind of the beginning stages, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong there, you want to build this from the trenches, basically, right? And so I think it's a really good thing for anybody that's in their first year after getting out of the military to try and reach out to you and see who you can help connect them with, right? Because it's through those connections that you're going to build this into a more structured and organized system, and that's what you're looking to do. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on any of that, because I don't want to I don't want to put you in a
No.
seat you're not wanting or not ready to be in yet. But what is the best way for anybody that's in that first year getting out of the military to get in touch with you so that you can help connect them to the things that you're talking about here?
Yeah, so all of my social medias, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, it's all, you can just search my name, Haley Dunkin. It'll pull right up. Um, I just share a lot of the same things about what it is to be grateful every day, what it is to be successful, how do you really define success, types, things like that. Just because one person's success is a different view of somebody else's success. When I was selling my business, I had that small moment of like, wow, I failed. Like, I couldn't just tough it out and take a moment to heal and do this and get right back on it. And then I look back and I'm like, no, I was told I needed heart surgery. Like, I'm not failing. I'm looking at my beautiful family, and I built a beautiful community, and now I get to pass the torch on. I didn't fail. I could help someone
Right.
recreate the entire business that I did if I wanted to and sell and make money doing that. But it was just stepping stones into it so I could see how other veterans, every appointment I went to, I would sit and talk to a veteran. Every retreat, well, I've only gone to one retreat, but every nonprofit that I've connected to, I wanted to hear their story and their why. Being now on the board of Operation Headshot, located in Nashville, they help veterans and spouses, become photographers and videographers and stuff like that. But their big goal is a wellness, retreat for veterans one day, because it is whole healing, versus just back and forth to VA doctors filling prescriptions. I think our generation is looking for so much more than that. We don't
Right.
want to just treat the symptoms. We want them to be gone. Us veterans that are 100% P&T, you know, it's a hit and miss, right? You're excited to get your 100%, but you're also like, I would rather feel 100%.
Right.
I'd rather not wake up and, I love going to my provider and she's like, what's your pain level today? And I said, I live at a 5. I'm never at a 0. It's 5
Right.
and up, and every veteran I talk to, they say the same thing. They're like, wow, I feel the same way. I was like, yeah, because we don't ever live at a 1 or a
No.
0. And, it's exciting when your buddy gets 100%, but it's also, they don't want to have those things to be at that position. You want to be able to do the things that you used to be able to do without physical chronic pain.
Yeah.
So that's why I share the love even on my darkest days, where I just am in so much pain or I'm just extremely exhausted, I will still give my 100%, but I had to step back because I you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think we need
Right.
to be able to set up our own boundaries and be able to know when to say no, because if you are such a giving person, there will be people who will just suck the life
Take
out of you.
advantage.
You need to be able to notice those people. And those people are the same people that will reach out of you at a random day and be like, you know what? I hope you're doing good. Have a great day. Just simple things like that type of stuff. Or, hey, I shared your contact with so and so because I thought you could help them or they could help you. Um, so it's always good, and I'm with some great nonprofits. There's a Vets Helping Vets of Greenville, which is the sweetest group in the entire world. It's so many Vietnam vets, and they literally just help each other. Hey, my tree fell in the yard. All these men in their 70s, 80s cutting pieces of the tree up and moving it. Hey, my
Right.
ramp fell apart. I can't get my wheelchair up. Boom, got it. Hey, my wheelchair broke. Oh, we're gonna raise money and get that wheelchair. And it's just such a humbling group to be part of. And my daughter's involved in all of it. She just got her name tag. She's the best hugger because she understands what physical touch can do for somebody. And a hug
Mm-hmm.
is just so sweet and simple. And when it's unconditional love, people can tell the difference.
Right.
6-year-olds don't hug 70-year-old people and not be like,
Right.
oh, where she's just like full on
Right.
like love. And a lot of these veterans are lonely. They come to these meetings because they have nothing or no one at home, and it makes a big difference. And if just us showing up can help them, it's an hour of
100%.
my day a week out.
100%. And so, okay, so let me go back to with those vets reaching out to you. So you got a lot of connections and you got a lot of nonprofits that you're talking about and mentioning here. And we can put all the links for that stuff in the show notes. So we'll have a lot of stuff from Haley for you guys to connect with. But again, connecting to Haley in your first year and really what I think is a good route for people to take with you, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, is when they get out, when we get out, we don't really know what we want to do with ourselves necessarily. Some people know a little bit more than others, but we have some ideas in our heads swimming around. And connecting with somebody like you inside the first year is really a good place to start funneling or channeling those energies and those ideas into something that's
Mm-hmm.
actually productive and not something that's just going to drain you like you talked about. So what I would really highly recommend anybody watching do is reach out to Haley, like she said, on her social media. Look up her name, send her a message. She's very good about responding to stuff like that, and just connect with her and just start talking with her and say, hey, this is my situation. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm looking for. Those kind of things, and see if Haley's got anything that she can do that would help you out. There's no charge for any of that, right? As Haley's talking here, she's working on setting up her own system for all these type of things, and you guys can help her be a part of organizing that. But you're going to get a lot of benefit from Haley. You're going to get a lot of love from Haley. She's very helpful in so many different ways, and I think you guys would be remiss if you missed that opportunity. So, like I said, all those links are going to be in the show and or in the show notes afterwards. We'll be able to connect. And Haley, is there anything before we sign off here? Anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything you wanted to promote or draw attention to, or are you good for this episode?
So I have a small thing. I always like to end anytime I talk to anyone. No one has to struggle alone. However, when you're at the end of any type of rope and you just need a moment to talk to somebody, don't text them, do you have a minute to talk? Don't text them, hey, I would love to come over and hang out. Send the message, do you have 8 minutes? Because 8 minutes can save a life. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that out as like the code, if everybody just knew that code little phrase, hey, do you have 8 minutes? You could save someone's life and you don't have to wake up tomorrow getting a call from your friend's mom.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think that's a valid point that we always need to make mention of, that, especially when it comes to veterans, it's not about expecting us to take those steps, right? Veterans are very self-sufficient. They're very we don't ask for help because we're not used to asking for help. We're used to radioing in for support. That's not the same thing, right? So, out here, we don't know how to radio in for support. And so if you ask a veteran, if you approach them, and you can't just go, hey, are you okay? You've got to engage at a deeper level than that. And doing that will open up the floodgates. It's almost like giving us permission, right? And so I think that's a really valid point to keep in everybody's brain as they're dealing with veterans. If you're even for us dealing with other veterans, for us to remember that when we think about our buddies and the people that we have to our left and right in this veteran community. Well, Hales, I really want to thank you for taking your time to come on and provide some valuable insights here, some really beautiful perspectives, a very wonderful attitude and a spirit of giving that we just don't see a whole lot of in this broken and fallen world. And so I'm happy today to be able to promote you into our community, to show people that there are others out there that actually do care, that actually will take the steps and make the effort and make the energy, and not do it as a way to take advantage and take something for themselves, but rather as something where they just promote that spirit of giving into our community to make it better for everyone. And so, Hales, you've been a great guest for me today. Thank you so much for spending your time on the show with me today. Thank you guys out there for spending your time on the show today to hopefully pull some great insights, some great perspective, and something that's helping you on your journey. So until next time, I'm James Beck with Haley Dunkin, praying that the Lord be a lamp unto all of our feet to keep and bless each of us on the path.